Before we start, can we talk about he allegedly peed on the bed. And right now, we're so busy that I'm literally here with pee on my hair because I decided that let me take a little nap. And I'm like, what is that pee smell? What is that pee smell? And I was like, okay, is it in my head? What's going on? And then all of a sudden, I felt Rome doop, 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 like on me. And then he's like, this is what he did. He's like... And then he went up to the pillow, like right above my head, and was like, and he's like, and I'm like, what? That means something's there. So I actually got up and I smelled the pee. It's on the top of the pillow. Why did he pee on that pillow? So right now the laundry's running and Sanjay's like, we don't have no time for you to take a shower and get ready. We got to go because we have a full schedule.
Let's do it.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am here.
All right.
With pee on my head and probably
good.
My shoulder.
You still smell good. You probably smell really good to Rome. Right, Rome?
So, yes. If it was in Rome, if it was in Kyoto, was it a ghost?
Do ghosts pee?
Do ghosts pee? Well, they don't have their organs and stuff anymore, so I guess not. But maybe as a sick joke.
They do slime. Maybe that's some ghost slime, right? Ghost slime.
Or like, have you watched the show Ghosts on Paramount?
I've watched watch it.
So good. It's so funny. I love that show. I love every single character. They are freaking awesome. But then what happens is if people walk through each ghost has their own scent or something that happens to the person. And one of them smells dead, and the other one smells like it gives like a heroin or cocaine shot, makes them high or something or whatever.
Okay, so this could totally have been a ghost.
Yeah, it could have been a ghost that smells like pee.
We'll stick with that. That's our explanation.
Let's talk about ghost stories.
Ghost stories. Okay.
We're in the month of October.
Yes, it's the perfect month for ghost stories. Let's do it.
We talked about scary stuff.
That was the scariest places, right?
Yes, we did scary places, not scary stuff. Now we can talk about the ghosts.
All right. Let's do it.
The who's and the goblins and the witches.
Wow, that's scary.
Okay. I've grown up. I think we did mention this in that story. In that last one, that I've grown up with a lot of ghost stories, like tons on my dad's side. Like legit almost everyone has experienced some sort of ghost situation or phenomenon, especially in India. It seems like India's...
Oh yeah, I have a ghost story from India. Not actually ghost, but it's pretty dang scary.
So you have Indian ghost stories?
I've got one story. Yeah, I've got one story. But I want to hear yours first. Tell us your first story.
I have so many. Okay. So anyways, I feel like because my dad's side is like this emotional, sensitive, like group of people, maybe we're like more apt to feel the paranormal.
Okay.
I'm just assuming. Now, from all my siblings, and I'm one of 4, I'm the only one really that has experienced stuff in depth, but a couple of them have had an experience where I have. Like, for example, like at night we have this house that we stayed in, and I would feel like pulling of the leg, or grabbing of the leg at night.
That's the scariest thing ever. That's the scariest thing I think I could ever experience. If anything was pulling my leg, that's it. We're moving.
No, I always thought like, okay, you think it's a dream, your body does all these like fantastical things. And then my sister's like, oh, I felt it too. There's a shadow that walks, and I've seen the shadow that's walked from my room down the hall. And I remember like, it was actually a week before we got married, the last time I had this encounter, and I got so freaked out. So the shadow came and was grabbing my leg.
So wait, where is this happening?
In Massachusetts.
Wait, where in your? This is in your house.
In my house.
Okay.
And this is the most recent, one of the recent ones. Okay. And I legit got up and I ran to my parents' room. I'm 25 years old, okay? And I ran to my parents' room and I snuggled with my mom, and I was just crying all night. I was like, something was in my room. They grabbed my leg. And she's like, I feel like someone in there too. So my mom feels a presence, but she hasn't really seen it. My sister, staying in my room after I got married, they would all make fun of me. Like, oh, she's just seeing things, doing, whatever. But then she moved into that room after I got married and would feel things the same way.
Okay, so everyone felt the same thing.
Yes.
Wow.
But it's been gone since I got married and moved here. Like,
nobody feels it anymore.
Nobody feels it anymore. Every time I go and visit, I don't feel it. I don't feel a presence. Like, it's gone.
Maybe it followed you here.
Okay, that was another theory. They're like, maybe it followed you there. But at our old house, I didn't really feel anything. New house, definitely don't feel anything. Maybe it tried to follow me and got lost.
So is that your first story?
I guess, okay. But it's a very minor one compared to other ones.
Okay, then I want to hear a major one. I want to hear a real ghost story.
Okay. So the first time I publicly talked about this story was at Tetro's studio.
Okay.
Remember?
Mm-hmm.
And that was scary because I've never really talked about this with anyone except a handful of people. Since I was like, it was a complete secret only to myself until I was 17. And then after that, I've only given this story to a handful of people. So this is very exclusive, you guys, okay?
Okay.
So no judgments. This is a safe space. This is about a ghost named Joe. Apparently, it has a name. So when I was 4 and 5 years old, my parents used to own this deli grocery store in a very, very white part of town in Massachusetts. And I remember, so basically it was like a duplex type home. The grocery store and deli was on the bottom, and on the top floor was the home place. And I remember my dad's parents, my grandparents, were living with us. At that point, there was only 3 of us girls. We were very young. Like I said, I was like 3 or 4 years old. And me and the second one, we would sleep with my grandparents on the floor, on the mattress pads, which is a very cultural basic thing to be sleeping on, Then my parents would be with my younger sister, the third one, in their room because she was very young, very like a baby. And I remember every night being so cold and the blankets be off of me. And I would sleep next to my grandfather, my dada. And I'd be like, dada, dada. And my legs would always be hurting. Like, that was just some physical sensations that I always remembered. Mm-hmm. And then I remember many times where I would just look over and you're in a bedroom. Say you guys are standing at the doorway and I'm sleeping this way. On this side would be the old school, wooden sliding closet doors, And it would always be open and I would see a man there with bulging eyes. And I always saw what he wore, what he looked like.
So wait, this was not just one incident. This was it would happen every night?
It was a repetitive thing almost every night. Okay? Unless I fell asleep like this, And we were there for a few years, I think, altogether, because the town was racist and they drove us out and there's a lot of different stuff happening.
So wait, set this up for me. Set up one night and how this would actually play out.
My grandfather would be sleeping here. My grandmother would be here. My sister would be there. And I would be on this side sleeping and it'd be getting cold all of a sudden. So I'd probably this is my memory, is just getting up in the middle of the night, feeling really cold, my legs hurting. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but my legs hurting and the blanket would be off of me and me trying to pull the blanket back on for my grandfather. And then just being kind of in pain and then being dada, dada. And then he'd put the blanket on me and he'd be go to sleep. He'd tell me a story. He used to sing. He was very, very caring. He would tell us tall tales and all this stuff and put us to sleep. And I'd go back to sleep. Mm-hmm. Then I'd wake up again in that same sort of way, but then I'd look over and something would tell me to look over to that closet right there, and I would see that man. And a lot of times I would avoid looking over, or the closet door would be closed, but when it was open, I'd see that man.
Did you ever think of closing the closet door before you went to sleep?
You might have
been too young to think of stuff like that.
I don't remember doing that. This is the core memory that I have of this. Now, fast forward 17 years, okay? I never told anyone what I would see because I don't know what I thought when I was younger, but just like maybe that I'm having nightmares. Like we grew up on all sorts of movies, 80s movies, like on these sort of things, and so maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it's not. I don't know how self-aware I was, but I remember I was like, maybe it's made up. Like it can't be real, sort of a thing.
Okay.
So anyways, fast forward 17. I was 17 and my cousin passed away and we were going to his funeral. And my parents were always very like open and like we're our whole family is storytellers. So we had a bunch of cousins and my siblings in the car going to the funeral. And I think it was like a 1 month ceremony. So by this time we're sad, but then like my parents were trying to distract us and we're telling stories and, just trying to like be uplifting with each other. I don't know how it played out, but basically for the first time ever, I was like, guys, I have this memory from when I was young and I would see this man in the closet with bulging eyes and he was always like there, like in there. And my dad started freaking out. He's like, what do you mean? What did you see? And I was like, this man, like he had overalls. Okay. He would, I can see it right now in my head, what I would see. A green cap, a red checkered shirt, and overalls. Okay. And my dad was like, Joe. And as soon as he said that, I lost it. Everyone in the car was screaming, like, what the heck? What do you mean, Joe? Like, what do you mean, Joe? Like, how do you, what do you know? What do you know? So my dad was like, basically, I guess like from generation to generation, father to son, this establishment was like traditionally in the family. And we were the first to break that tradition between like whatever happened with that family and us buying this this market. The guy had hung himself in that closet.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Hung himself.
And you never knew the story before?
No.
You're just hearing it for
the first time.
How would I?
Yeah, because I never even told anyone about it. So my dad said that he had hung himself and he used to wear that green cap. That was his signature thing. He's like, yeah, he used to wear the green cap. He used to come to the store or whatever. And then I was like, all right, my dad's just pulling my leg. There's no way. We all had a laugh, whatever. Not we, my cousins and everyone had a laugh about it. And it became a thing. That's at 17. I go off to college. I come back from college. And one of my first psych jobs, it was in an inpatient psychiatric unit. Okay, it's the same lady.
And Joe is there.
No, it's not there.
Okay.
The same lady that I said was so cool about the whole alien thing that I could talk to. I was doing this overnight shift, okay? And she likes to work that overnight shift. And you can talk to her about anything. She was so cool. Like, I loved her. Anyways, and I remember, so now I'm like 21, 22, okay? So some years have passed and I've never told people this story again. So I'm talking to her at the nurse's station and it's dark. So this is overnight shift, okay? There's like 20 patients. They're all sleeping or supposed to be sleeping. And I'm supposed to do 5 to 10 minute rounds throughout the night. And while I'm walking back, I come back and we're talking about all these like extraterrestrial ghost type stuff. And I'm like, Susan, I have a story and I don't know if it's real. My dad told me that it's real, but you've got to hear this. You're from the area and she grew up in that area where our deli and stuff was. So I told her the whole story and she's like, she says the F word. She's like, holy effing shit. That's effing Joe. And I'm like, what? I'm like,
so
what?
She knew who he was too.
She knew who he was. And she said she had the newspaper clipping at home.
Did she show you?
No, she did not show me. Did she show me? No, I would have known if she showed me. But she was supposed to show me. She grew up there and knew the family and said, yeah, that had happened.
Wow.
And said exactly the same thing. That was his signature look. That guy was there. He killed himself in the closet, hung himself. And meanwhile, I'm seeing the ghost. So then, after that conversation opened me up to like the possibility of everything I've been seeing in my childhood and experiencing. Is it in my head or is it ghosts and spirits? Like that opened up so much in my head.
Wow. That's a good story.
Yeah.
So do you still, but you never see Joe anymore, like when you
we don't live
up,
there. We never lived there.
But you never see Joe. You never wake up with a picture of Joe in your head.
No, only when I'm telling the story.
Wow.
Yeah. Or like when I'm thinking about it, like, oh yeah, I remember, like if you're thinking about childhood memories, you know, like, oh, I think about certain rooms. I think about what that home looked like. We were there for such a short period of time.
Do you ever think of going back and doing like a ghost hunters type of thing and
I have.
checking out the place?
I've actually driven past there to be like, what did it look like? Where did we live? Because what's in your head is like so crazy. And I remember this young girl, like a neighbor's kid. I'd go over there and we'd play with like these, you know, the jelly, like sparkly shoes and these, I think like Starbright was like really popular then, and like being able to do those girly things and play with dolls and kitchen sets and stuff like that. That's one of my memories. And then also going over to this other boy's house, at this corner house that had like a fence. I don't even know where he is, but I remember my mom like dropping us off and we'd play outside in the yard, you know?
So, okay. What, would you go back there?
I want to go back there. I want to see that house. I want to see the balcony. There's a balcony. Like some of my early memories of like hearing thunderstorms and the lightning and being scared of it. Maybe because Joe was there. I don't know. But I remember being really scared of like thunder sounds for like several years into my teens.
I think I was too when I was little.
But because there's this image stuck in my head from that balcony and seeing the lightning and stuff.
You know, this kind of reminds me of the guy from I Know What You Did Last Summer.
What? Why?
I think he was wearing overalls too. The guy they accidentally killed and then comes back to, you know, haunt them or kill them.
What?
You don't remember that movie?
I don't remember.
I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's like a classic movie from,
No,
I think it's the late 90s.
I remember the movie in the sense of watching it and everyone immediately.
But you don't remember the guy?
No,
okay.
I don't.
I think he had overalls and fish hook or something. I don't know. He had something like that. Anyway, yeah.
So that's one of my many stories.
Wow. Okay, that's a good one.
Do you have one? Before I keep going?
I don't have a ghost.
Wait,
it's not
but hearing that, how does that make you feel?
Well, you have told me this story before. So
yes.
I have heard this.
How did it make you feel when the first time I told you?
You've told me a lot of ghost stories. So I was kind of like, experiences like this that you've had. So I'm like, okay, you saw something. I want to actually talk to the other people involved because we've never had I've never had a conversation with your family about this story.
Yeah.
I want to hear from your dad because if your dad was the first one to kind of explain who this guy was, that might be interesting to have the conversation now, like so many years later.
Yeah.
And kind of put the puzzle pieces together.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that.
We should.
Why have we not done that? I guess it's one of those things where you just kind of like move on just because of like such a big reaction that everyone had. You kind of don't want to seem cray cray.
Yeah.
What's your story from India?
So I was maybe around 13 or 14 years old. And
they always get the young, don't they?
Well, I think at that age, you kind of you're not expecting things, but you're kind of open to things. But anyway, I don't think that had much to do with it. I was in India. I was visiting India, and and this was at night on a college campus. But in India, no matter where you are, except if you're in like a major city, it's pretty quiet at night. It's just not the same sounds that you have.
Yeah.
You don't have a nearby highway that you can always hear a little buzzing of cars. It's
You might hear a
quiet.
little dog like barking or howling.
Yeah, and that's about it. Otherwise, it's very, very quiet.
Yeah.
So I was staying at my uncle's house, and I have some cousins that live there as well. So since we were visiting, we all kind of, just like you were saying, we slept on the living room floor in like sleeping bags, something like that. So we were all there together.
Takyas.
Which was really...
Takyas are pillows or mattresses.
Yeah.
With like those padded mattresses and stuff.
So we were sleeping there. A bunch of us cousins were sleeping there. And it was in the middle of the night. And again, it's very, very quiet. And I felt like I was the only person who was awake. But I was awoken because of a sound. And I've never again heard this sound. It was the sound of someone screaming. And it was loud. And it wasn't in the house. It was outside of the house. It sounded like it was coming from a neighbor, like a neighbor's house.
What if it was a neighbor in distress?
So I heard this screaming, and then I was thinking to myself, somebody must be awake in the house that I was in. Somebody must be hearing this. But I looked around and no one else was awake. So I nudged my cousin who was sleeping right next to me, and I asked him, "Do you hear that?" And he said, "Yeah, I hear it." He didn't have much of a reaction to it, which was even scarier. He said, "Yeah, I hear it." And you'd expect, here, if we heard that kind of screaming,
Yeah.
we'd be up and running to the door, calling 911.
All the lights are on.
Yes, multiple neighbors would be alerted and everybody would. But there, he just gave me the answer that, "Yeah, I hear it." And that itself was so weird to me.
So your cousin is creepy.
And then I said, "What is it?" And he was still like half asleep. And he kind of said, Don't worry about it. We've heard that before because they're doing exorcisms across the street.
Up.
Yes.
Shut up.
Boom. There you go. And the screaming was like nothing I'd ever heard of.
Oh my God.
It was
Okay,
that
so in
scary.
movies,
They've
shown exorcisms in Bollywood movies, and I am hearing it right now.
Yeah, it's
like
not
what
the.
It would be. Oh, I
it's
just
not
touched
the.
my pee hair.
It's not the usual like scream that something scared you or startled you kind of scream. It is something is happening
Painful.
to me. And it's not a physical body pain type of scream either. It's different. The best way I can describe it is it's otherworldly type of scream, and that's what I heard. And what made it so unusual, and I'll never forget it, is how everyone just kind of knew that it was happening. So everybody was quiet about it at night. It was just the norm, and nobody did anything. So it was just like this dark, quiet place in India, and just in the middle of the night, you would just hear these screams, and no one did anything. Okay. Well, because hopefully whoever was screaming was actually getting helped by this exorcism, but we don't know.
My dad's side has a lot of these stories, and we've heard people get exorcised, and my aunt has gotten exorcismed, and apparently there were several ghosts in her that occupied her. Yes. And again, we need my dad here. Like, why is he not on this thing?
That's
he has
your
so
next
many stories. He's like,
for your next ghost story episode, you need to have your dad tell stories.
Even that aunt will tell you stories. Like they have so many from that village, and it's same sort of thing where like it's just so quiet. It's an outskirt village. Everything's dark. It's like nothing else is happening, but people are getting exorcised. And I don't know where all these spirits are coming from. I mean, probably because it's such a populous world, a populous, what is it called? Country. Mm-hmm. And there's more people dying, so there's more ghosts, like per square footage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also when you think of exorcism, sometimes I think if you don't believe that someone really needs an exorcism, then maybe there's mental illness involved.
Yeah.
And maybe and the scary thing about it is maybe the people who are performing exorcisms or doing something to get rid of these spirits are doing bad things to people.
But it's usually some
too.
sort of like incense thing with some sort of ceremonial like gestures. And then after it's done, these people are cured. Like they're cured. They're not showing any other symptoms according to all the stories.
Mm-hmm. According to the storytellers, according to the people who performed the exorcism, hey, I fixed them.
No,
but those people
I did not talk to the priest who did the exorcism.
But for the people who actually, I don't know.
But yeah, what if they're schizophrenic?
Yeah.
I have directly dealt with schizophrenic.
And then if
people
you have
I have directly dealt with people with schizophrenia, and it is scary, especially when you're working the evening shift. And I have seen personalities change before me with like the voice and everything.
Multiple personality disorder.
Yeah, multiple personality disorder.
Wow. Do you have another story to tell?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
So I have quite a few. I mean, we talked about some scary place stuff, some kind of like, okay.
But this got to be a ghost one, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my old house in Massachusetts, before the one I just talked about, the very first one, we lived there for about 17 years. So a lot of my childhood into my late teens was spent there. And we've had tons of people come in and out of our house. My parents always kept like full on families or kids that wanted to go to school or just like help people out, Well, they try to make their life or whatever in the US. So, and I'm saying like that because I didn't have my own space until a lot of them left. So when I had my own space, I had this corner room, and my way of dealing with problems that I had growing up was listening to music at night. Mm-hmm. And I would have either my headphones on or this little radio that I had by my side like constantly. And I would put the music on to get rid of just the head noise, outdoor noise, whatever.
Yeah.
So when the head noise wasn't happening, the outdoor noise, when this radio was not on, no CDs on, nothing's playing, I would hear old-timey sounds. Like picture a record, old-timey record playing like that kind of music.
You'd hear that in your head.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was like, why am I always hearing this? And a lot of times I would go to like the cracks, like my uncle and aunt would stay downstairs, and my parents had a room built just so they could these families could stay there and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, is it happening directly downstairs? Are they listening to music? Nobody would be listening to music. I would check several times and this would keep happening. And I would hear a man and a woman, like an older man and a woman, having these pleasant conversations. And I never got anything like mean-spirited out of it. It just felt like a couple was listening to music and chit-chatting. And then, what was it? We were leaving one day so this is usually at night. Then, one of the days, we had to leave, all of us, to go somewhere. And I remember I had to go into my sister's room we forgot something, so I went in, and my mom followed me behind me. And I just stopped in the hallway, and I'm like, the sound is there, and it's louder. Mm-hmm. Because the whole family wasn't in there. I just ran in. And I'm like, God. And I remember my mom was like, what's going on? And I was like, do you hear that? And she's like, yeah, who left the music on? And wow. I was like, what? Wait, you hear that? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, your radio's on or whatever.
And all that time you thought it was just in your head.
I thought it was just in my head.
Wow.
So I went to my room, did make sure the whole house, nothing's on. I was like, Mommy, nothing's on. And I was like, this is what I've been hearing for so long. Like I keep hearing this sound and this music. I can't believe you're hearing it. So when we were selling that house to go into this new house where the guy grabbed my leg, mm-hmm. My mom, my mom had talked to the realtor, and we were talking to him, and I was telling him like, "Hey, I've had this experience. Like, has anyone ever died here or whatever? Because it's such an old house."
Yeah.
And he said that the only thing he knows is the family that lived there was a younger family. They had their parents living there with them, and both the parents used to live in that room and passed away in this house.
So they were still there, chit-chatting and listening to music, even after they had passed.
Can you? Can you even? Can you even?
I love the move that you do after your story. You're like, voila, there it is. I just proved it.
And those are the type of things that I experience.
But that's a good one. I like that one. Yeah, I like that you always have like a twist in your ghost stories. Your twist is like, so I was hearing this for years. I would always hear it, and then one day, someone said they heard it too. Like mic drop all of a sudden.
Mic drop.
Wow.
Oh man, I have more.
That's good. Well, you got to save them for next Halloween then, huh?
Oh, save them for next Halloween. Yes. Or come by, chat with us, you know? We could do like a fire camp stories thing. Have you ever done that? Have you ever done like a
campfire?
Campfire, like stories.
Yeah. We've actually been camping many, many times, and around the campfire, I remember several people would have ghost stories, things like that. It was fun.
I don't think I have, but with my cousins, we have like said ghost stories like that you hear in school or that are made up, and that, you know, there was this one that I used to love telling that I learned in elementary school. I forgot which book it was from. You know, like something like where the sidewalk ends or whatever. That kind of a vibe. And I remember it was a story where like, so I don't even remember it, but I used to tell it so well. It's like,
oh, was it kind of like a poem kind of thing?
yeah, it was like a poem. Okay. Oh. It was like a poem. And basically you start at a certain destination and you get closer and closer and closer and closer. And then there's this climax thing, but you get quieter and quieter and quieter when you're telling the story. And then when the climax is, you do this whole like, boo. And people are already like in there. And then they all start screaming. And it was the best.
You need to find this, and then you need to make like a reel or a TikTok.
Yes, I do.
Telling it. That would
I
be
used
fun.
to know it by heart. And I did also like tweak it here and there to make it scarier and last longer.
You got to find it.
I know, I need to find it.
You can make a little quick...
I probably have it written somewhere because I used to always have journals growing up. I always wrote. Like I always wrote poetry. I always wrote stories. I loved writing short stories. And like when I'd find stuff like this, I would always write it down. So it's probably somewhere in some box, in some composition book.
Well, you better find it. Then you can share it.
Well, this is it for now. You only get a little bit of dosage of ghost stories from me. If you want more, please subscribe, okay? We have tons of stories to share. And my concept is there's only one Earth, which is what my name means, Dharti. So spend the time spreading love, chatting with each other, connecting, and don't get close to a ghost. Watch out.